Hi everyone, I am Kinsuk Parasar and we are going to start with Science and Technology chapter 3 today. Okay. So in the last two sessions, we have discussed about the first chapter regarding the cell, and in the second chapter, we have also talked about the biomolecules which were there. We have seen some of the important concepts like what are the carbohydrates, what is the chances of different deficiency diseases due to lack of certain macronutrients or micronutrients. So we have talked about all these things in the last two sessions. In the today's session, we are going to start with another important chapter, and that chapter is going to be about the tissues of the living being. Okay. So we have discussed the two chapters right now, cell nucleic acid and cell division, and the second one, biomolecules and metabolites. Now we are going to discuss about this important chapter, tissues of living beings. Now, this chapter is very much fundamental for you to understand how the plants and animals are functioning in a different manner. Their appearance, their shape, okay, their ability to move or their ability to remain standing in one single position, how this all is achieved. So, if you go through this chapter, you would get that clarity. You would get that clarity that how the plants are able to stand in the same position, and from time to time, according to the cyclones and the winds, or even with fruits, they can bend also. Okay. So what is providing them that strength, and what is enabling them to have certain bendings also, have some bending movements also from time to time. Okay. Then we will also see like all the different things which are made up in our body, all the things which we are seeing like the skins, the blood, how they are made up of, or what they are made up of, what are they, what type of tissues are they. And then we will also talk about one very important part of it, like there are certain tissues which are not under our control. They are involuntary muscles. They are involuntary tissues. Okay. So we are going to talk about them as well. Okay. So let us start this chapter. If we talk about the first thing, here the first thing that we have to understand that what exactly is a tissue. Now, in a very basic manner, like in the chapter of cell, we have discussed that cell is the basic foundation unit of life. Okay. All the different things which we see around us, any living organism, that is made up of cell. Okay. Now, when the different cells combine together, they form what we call as tissue. Okay. So when multiple cells are coming together, they are basically forming the tissue. And this tissue is considered as a crucial level of organization. Okay. It is considered as a crucial level of organization in all the living organisms. Okay. Now, here you can see that like in the case of animals, this muscle tissue is formed by a group of things called muscle cells. Okay. While plant tissues, if we talk about, they have different plant cells having specific functions. So in this chapter, we will also see how their tissues are different. Okay. But first of all, we are going to start with animal tissue. We are going to see what are the different types of animal tissue and what is their role, what role they are playing in our body. Okay. So let us see. Basically, we can classify the animal tissues under four major categories. The first thing is we have the epithelial tissue. Then the second one is the muscular tissue. Then we have this connective tissue, and then we also have nervous tissue. So they are the four major classification of the tissues which are there. Okay. Now, in this chapter, in this book, we have discussed about the detail of all these different tissues. Okay. We have discussed about all these things in examples, with the help of examples also. Okay. So we are going to see about all these things in a gradual manner. Okay. Let us first start with this epithelial tissue. Okay. Now, I can say this, if we talk about the animal epithelial tissue, they are serving as the body's covering, okay, or the protective tissue. Okay. The body covering or the protective tissue, they are basically what is the epithelial tissue. Okay. You can see they are found in the skin. Okay. The skin which is there, that is also our epithelial tissue. Okay. Then you can also find them in the blood vessels which we are having, in the kidney tubules, in the kidney, the lung alveoli, and also the lining of the mouth. In all these places, you can find this epithelial tissue. Okay. Now, if we talk about them, like the majority of our cavities and the organs is basically covered in this epithelium. Okay. So it is also performing a very important role of even creating partition inside our body between different types of organs which are there. The different organs which are there, they are partitioned by this tissues also. Okay. So this epithelial tissue is working into that manner. Okay. Now, one important part of this, okay, if there is anything which is entering inside our body, okay, or exiting the body, if anything is coming inside the body or if it is going outside the body, it has to pass through at least one layer of epithelium. Okay. So this is one acting as the protective cover of the body. Okay. So at least if anything is entering inside the body or going outside the body of animals, they have to pass through epithelium. Okay. Now, see, they have different role in exchange of materials between the body's numerous organs and also outside the environment. So they are also performing a role of facilitating the exchange of different substances between different organs of the body as well as the body and the environment. Okay. So that is the role of the epithelial tissues in our body. Okay. The second important tissue is the conductive tissue. Okay. Now, if we talk about the body, okay, if we talk about the animal body, okay, they have the most widely dispersed connective tissues. Okay. Now, what is the role of, like, see what the role they are playing? They are playing a very important role of tying together and supporting other body tissues and organs. Okay. Now, just imagine about this, like our body is connected from top to bottom. Okay. And it's not that they are all like getting all these things by themselves. Like suppose if we talk about oxygen or if we talk about the food items. Okay. So food item is entering into our body. Food item is going into a stomach. From there it is going into intestine. From there it is carried by the blood to all the different part of the cell. Okay. So it all requires transportation. Okay. And for this purpose, for this very purpose, the connective tissues are very much important in our body. When we are talking about the facilitation of even the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Okay. It's not that the oxygen is going to each and every cell of our body individually. Okay. It is not that all the body portions are absorbing the oxygen from the environment. No, it is going via root. It is entering into our nostrils. It is going into the lungs. From there, it is again absorbed by the blood and then carried to the each and every cell of our body. Now, so see here. So what are the different types of this connective tissue? These connective tissues are like blood, fat, bone, cartilage. Okay. So they are the major connective tissues which are present in our body. Okay. Now, we have certain specialized connective tissues like cartilage, bones, blood, and alveolar. Okay. So blood, bones, and cartilage. If we talk about them, if we talk about the cartilage role, now you'll find one very interesting thing that in case of mature vertebrate organisms, okay, in case of the mature vertebrate organisms, the majority of the embryonic cartilage is replaced by bone. So basically, the embryonic cartilage which is there, embryo which forms the entire body. So the cartilage which is present there in the embryo, the embryonic cartilage, it develops in form of bone in case of the vertebrate organism. Now, answer me one thing. In this very topic, we have discussed about one thing, that all the cells of our body, all the organs of our body, they are getting oxygen with the help of blood. Basically, the blood is carrying the oxygen from the lungs to the different part of the body. But can you tell me, is there any such organ of our body, is there any such part of our body which is not getting the supply of blood and hence the oxygen? Is there any such part of our body which is not getting this oxygen? They are taking oxygen directly from the environment. There is one such part in our body which is acting like this. Okay. So now this is a question for you. Just search about it and tell in the comment box that which organ is there. which body part is directly receiving the oxygen from the atmosphere? In human body, there is one such organ. Okay. Now, if we talk about this, now see, in case of adult, the cartilage can be found in which parts? They can be found in the outer ear joints. They can be found in the trachea. They can be found in the larynx. They can also be found in the column bones, limbs, and hands. Okay. So in all these locations, we can get the cartilage. Okay. Now, there is also important part. This bone cell, okay, it is the primary tissue that is like, if we talk about this cartilage, it is the primary tissue, bone cells, it is the primary tissue that is giving the body its structural framework. Okay. If we talk about the another important connective tissue, that is the bone tissue or the bone cells, they are basically providing the structural framework for the body. Okay. The softer tissues and organs are supported and shielded by bones. You know that we have this rib cage, and the rib cage is there protecting our vital organs such as lungs, heart. Okay. Even our brain is being protected by the shell of the body. Okay. Again by the bones only. Okay. Then, if we talk about, there is another important tissue which is ligament. Okay. Now, this ligament is responsible for joining two bones together. Okay. This ligament is also very much flexible. This ligament is also very much flexible, but has a lot of strength also. Okay. It has a lot of strength also. Okay. Then we have another thing which is called as tendon. Now, it is linking the bones with the muscles. Okay. You can see there is another connective tissue which is tendon, and it is connecting the bones and the muscles. Okay. So they are basically a fibrous tissue, and they have little flexibility but tremendous strength. Okay. So this is another important tissue. So far we have seen first cartilage, then we have talked about the bone tissue, then we have talked about the tendons. Okay. We have also talked about ligament. Then there is another important part, that is the blood. Okay. So you can see the red blood cells, the white blood cells, the platelets, and the plasma. They are all the components of the blood, and this is a fluid connective tissue. This is a fluid connective tissue, and it is the primary circulating fluid that facilitates the transport of different chemicals inside the body. This blood, it is responsible for transport of the food items to the different cells of the body. It is the one which is responsible for carrying the oxygen to the different part of the cells, different cells of our body, and also taking back carbon dioxide produced during the respiration process out of the body. Okay. Now, if we are consuming any medicine, you can see that we are like, suppose we are having any such elements, we are having any such disease. So we just take some oral pills. Okay. Now that oral pill is again going into our blood, and from there it is reaching to the different part of the body. Okay. So again, even the transport of that medicine is happening through this fluid connective tissue which is blood. Okay. So they are the important connective tissues which are there. Okay. So we have discussed two different things here. First, epithelium. Second is the connective tissue. Okay. Now, the third important tissue is muscular tissue. Okay. Now, this muscular tissue is basically appearing like a long cylindrical fiber that is making up each muscle of the body, and they are arranged in parallel arrays. Okay. Now, they are shorter. Like if we talk about them, they are shortened in response to the stimulus. Then they extend in coordinated manner to relax and contract. Okay. Relax and then return to the uncontracted state. Okay. So see, basically the muscles which are there, they are helping us in the movement of the body. Okay. They are responsible in the movement of the body. There is a contractile proteins which are one of the unique proteins which is found in the muscles, and it is responsible for contraction and relaxation. Okay. So muscles are the one which is enabling the movement And for that purpose, there is a protein, contractile proteins. They are found in the muscles. Okay. And we have three different type of muscles: cardiac, smooth, and skeletal. Okay. You can see on this side the different shape and size of the cardiac muscle, the skeletal muscle, as well as the smooth muscle. This cardiac muscle, as you can see from the image also, it is found in our heart. Okay. Then the skeletal muscle found across our body. And then we have certain smooth muscles, like you can see. We can talk about the intestines, where the smooth muscles are there. Okay. So let us first talk about the smooth muscles, which are involuntary in nature. Okay. Now, the smooth muscles which are there, they include the flow of food through the digestive tract. Okay. They are helping in the flow of the fluid through the digestive tract in our body. Okay. And the contraction and dilation of the blood vessels. Okay. Even the contraction of the dilation of the blood vessels, it is again happening through the smooth muscle tissue. It is involuntary, means people do not have control over it. We cannot control its contraction or relaxation. When we are moving our limbs, we have control over our movement. But in this case, we don't have any such control. That's why the name is involuntary muscle. We cannot regulate it. Okay. It is involuntary in nature. Then they are also seen in the ureters, the lungs, bronchi, and even the iris of the eye. See, basically the iris muscle, it is controlling the size of the pupil of the eye. Okay. And see, when there is too much of light, the pupil contracts. Now, how does it contracts? Okay. It becomes smaller in size. How does that happen? Now, that happens due to the expansion of the iris muscle. And then suppose that if the light is too low, if it is too dim, then we need more amount of light in order to see any object. Then it dilates. The pupil dilates. And for that, again the contraction in the iris muscle is required. During the time when we want to see something, relaxation in the iris muscle is required. When we want to see something dim, then relaxation is required. Okay. So this is how the iris muscles regulate the size of the pupil. Okay. Now see, the smooth muscles, okay, if we talk about them, they lack striations and they taper at both the ends. Okay. At the same time, they are found in walls of internal organs like stomach, intestine, blood arteries. Okay. Then we have another thing, that is cardiac muscle. It is also an involuntary muscle. Now, if we talk about this cardiac muscle, it is a specialized muscle. Okay. And they exhibit cyclic contraction and relaxation. They have been termed as cardiac muscles. They are again unconscious muscles. Okay. Then if we talk about them, they also have a very important thing called communication connections. Basically, all the cells which are there, they are interconnected with each other. They have a communication connection, and due to which they have this systematic, or they have the same response at all the time. They contract together, they relax together. Okay. So suppose that when one cell receives a signal to contract, its neighbors are also stimulated to contract. Okay. So suppose that if one cell is receiving that order, or it is receiving that stimulus that it has to contract, the other cells which are connected with it, they are connected with a communication connections, intercalated discs which are there. Okay. So it is helping them to work in the same manner in the same time. Okay. That's why we have a systematic, like a system of heart going on. Okay. Then the one more tissue which we can see here is our nervous tissue. Now, if we talk about the nervous tissue in our body, so basically this is providing us the ability to change, ability of the body to adapt according to the changing condition. If anything is changing in our environment, we need to adapt according to that. Okay. If suppose that if you are hitting something which is very much hot, so you have to pull your hands. Now, it's not that you decide, okay, I'm now going to pull my hand slowly. No, that is an immediate action by you. That is an immediate reflex which we can see. Okay. So these nervous tissue, they are basically working for that purpose. Okay. Now, they are called as the building block of the nervous systems. Okay. And the neurons which are there, they are also called as excitable cells. Okay. Now, the brain system, like apart from this neural cell, the rest of the brain system, they are basically the neuroglial cell guards. Okay. And they maintain the neurons. So more than half of the body's neural tissue is made up of this neuroglia. Okay. Now, see this. This nervous system, what it is consisting of? It is consisting of the brain, the spinal cord, as well as the nerves. These three are the main organs of our nervous system. Apart from that, of course, we also have this sensory organs which are helping the nervous system. Okay. But these three are the main, the brain, the spinal cords, and the nerves which are there. Okay. These tissue cells, they have been called as neurons, or they have been called as nerve cells. Okay. Now keep one thing in mind. Each neuron, if we talk about them, they consist of one long segment, the axon, and the numerous short branched pieces known as dendrites. So basically, they are having axons and they are having dendrites. Okay. Then you can see one very important part here. The length of a single nerve cell can reach 1 meter also. Okay. So it can be quite lengthy as well. Then see, this is made up of several nerve fibers that are connected by connective tissue. So connective tissue is also helping in this formation of the nerve cell. Okay. So this is the structure here. Okay. You can see the axon which is there. Okay. This is the nucleus of the nerve cell, the neuron. Okay. Now, so this is the part of our animal cell. We have seen there are 4 important tissues which are there. Okay. One was the epithelial tissue. We have seen it is the protective cover. Okay. Then we have talked about the connective tissue. We have seen its role. Even we have talked about the role of the blood. We have talked about the role of other, like we have talked about the cartilage, the bones, the ligaments, the tendons. Okay. Then after comes the muscles. Okay. There we have seen the muscles of like a cardiac muscle which is there, then a skeletal muscle which is there, then smooth muscles which are there. Okay. So these 3 muscles are also the part of the muscular tissue which is there. Then we have seen the 4th important one, that is nervous tissue. Okay. So we have seen we have the neurons. Neurons can also be, one single neuron cell can be of up to 1 meter in length. Okay. So they are the different tissues which are found in the animals. Now we are going to talk about the plants. Okay. Now see one thing. The plants, if we talk about them, if we talk about the animals, you know that they are locomotive, means they can travel from one place to another. But if we talk about the plants, they are basically stationary or fixed. They are not moving from one position to another position. They are fixed in their position. And for this very thing, they need structural strength. Okay. So they are made up of certain tissues which is providing them that structural strength which can enable them to remain in a fixed position. Okay. See, most of the plant tissues are dead. That is one important part of it. Most of the plant tissues are dead. Okay. See, basically, now the dead tissues, they can provide the same strength as is provided by the live one, and plus at the same time, they do not require the maintenance. So on one hand, the dead tissues of the plants are giving the strength to the plant. On the other hand, they do not even require any maintenance by the plant body. Okay. So they have got the dual benefit, no maintenance plus support as well. Okay. See, though, if we talk about this, if we talk about the animals on the other hand, you know that they have to search for the food. Now, plants don't have to search for food. They are standing in their position. They have this ability to make their own food. Okay. We will also discuss that part later, the skeletonchyma which is there. Okay. That what it consists of and what is its role. But right now we can see the plants do not have to move from one place to another place in search of food. Whereas if we talk about the animals, the animals have to go from one position to another position. They have to get a huge amount of energy. Their cells are mostly active. They do not have dead cells like the plants. Okay. So most of the tissues which they are containing, most of the tissues which animals are containing, they are living in nature. Okay. But in case of plants, they are dead in nature. Okay. Most of the tissues. Okay. Now, we can see that there are certain tissues in the plant which is providing them strength throughout the year. Okay. They are localized in certain regions. Okay. And then we can see they can be classified into meristematic tissue and permanent tissue. Okay. So we are going to see this. We are going to see the different pattern of these different plants which are here. Okay. So we are going to see the pattern in them. What are the different type of tissues which are there? What role they are performing? So let us see about them. Okay. Basically, we have two different type of tissues. One is the permanent tissue, okay, which is like they have got a specialized function and they are working according to that. And then we have this meristematic tissue. Okay. This meristematic tissue is continuously like dividing, and they are producing different cells of the plant, which then acquires a specialized function. Okay. So you can see, like in humans, we have this stem cells. Okay. Somatic stem cells are there. So somatic stem cells also have this capacity to develop into different types of cell. In simple manner, you can have a bit of connection, although these two are entirely different, but you can have a bit of connection with meristematic tissue also. So meristematic tissues are those which are growing into different types of cells, and those different cells can acquire a specific function. Then they can even become part of the permanent tissue structure. Okay. So let us see about them one by one. In the permanent also, you can see we have got the simple permanent tissue, then complex permanent tissue. In simple, we have this parenchyma, collenchyma, skeletonchyma. Okay. Here we have xylem and phloem as two complex tissue. And then we have the meristematic tissue. We have apical meristem, intercalary meristem, and lateral meristem. Now, so let us talk about them. Meristematic tissue. Okay. See, if we talk about them, there are only certain parts of the plant where the plant can grow. Okay. Because these portions of the plant, they are actually consisting of the dividing tissue of the plant, which is known as the meristematic tissue. As I was telling you earlier, the meristematic tissue has this ability of dividing and then getting differentiated into different type of the cells. Okay. So see, when a meristem is producing new cells, they are initially resembling the meristem itself. But as they grow, as they become mature, they can acquire certain properties and they can start to differentiate as other parts of the plant. Okay. Other tissues of the plants can be growing from there. Okay. So meristem is one which can divide into different types of the tissues of the plant. And this is the one where there is continuous growth. Okay. Whereas if you look at the animals, you will find that like their body structure is quite complex. Okay. The heart cells will also divide on continuously. The other cells which are there, apart from that, there is this somatic stem cells which are there. So they have continuous division and other functions. But in case of the plants, they have this growth tissues which are called as the meristematic tissues. Okay. Now, if we talk about the permanent tissue, okay, so they are formed by the meristematic tissue. Okay. They are formed by this meristematic tissue and they take up a specific role and lose their ability to divide. Okay. So they first come from the meristematic tissue, okay, and then they acquire certain role and then they lose their ability to divide. Okay. So they will not be dividing any longer. They will not be growing any longer. Okay. So they develop from the meristematic tissue and then they become permanent in nature. Okay. Then they are forming this permanent tissue. Okay. So they take a permanent shape, size, and a function. And this process is what we call as differentiation. Okay. Now, in the permanent tissue, we have two different things, simple permanent and the complex permanent. Okay. So in the simple one, we have certain different types of tissues which are there. One is called as parenchyma. Okay. Now, this is a sort of permanent tissue and it is like made up of cells with very much thin cell walls. Okay. So their cell walls are quite much thin. Okay. And at the same times, these cells are alive also. Okay. These cells are alive also. And they are also called as the fundamental packing tissue. Okay. They are also basically the fundamental packing tissue. Okay. They have very thin cell walls and a permanent tissue is there. That is in form of parenchyma. Okay. Then we have got the another important part, chlorenchyma. Okay. Now, they are supporting the plants at the same time. They are also consisting of the chlorophyll. Now, you know that this chlorophyll is responsible for trapping the sunlight and also performing photosynthesis. So, this chlorenchyma is consisting of that chlorophyll. Okay. Now, see, there is another one which is called as parenchyma. Okay. So, basically, the large air cavities which are found in the aquatic plants, they are called as parenchyma. This parenchyma is similar, like they are similar to the parenchyma which are there. Okay. They are similar to the parenchyma which are there. So, this is basically found in the aquatic plants which are there. Okay. Now, water and nutrients can also be stored in parenchyma of stems as well as the roots. Okay. So, the plants, you can see the aquatic plants which are floating, they are basically having this parenchyma. And inside this parenchyma, there is presence of cavities which consist of air and water. Now, remember one thing, just try to connect it with the Archimedes principle. If there is cavity inside any structure, okay, any enclosed substance, and its density is lower, it will keep on floating. Okay. So, you can apply that concept of buoyancy and Archimedes principle, and then you can know that what is helping these plants to float on the surface of water even when they can be heavier or even when they are like not having this ability to swim across it. Okay. So, what is helping them? Basically, this parenchyma which is consisting of the cavities, it is consisting of the air molecules inside it as well as water. So, it reduces that density and it helps the plants to float on the surface of water. Okay. Now, collenchyma. The collenchyma are basically giving the plants their flexibility. Okay. Now, we have seen that the others which are there, the parenchyma others, they are helping to keep the plant or to give that strength to the plant to remain erect, to remain in a standing position. But you will find that plants are also bending from time to time. Okay. Maybe if the wind is greater in amount, okay, or when the wind speed is higher, when there is a storm-like situation or cyclone-like situation, you'll find that the trees are bending. They're bending quite a lot. But even after that, they are not getting uprooted or their structure is not broken. So what is enabling them? What is enabling the branches of the plants to bend? That is basically our collenchyma. Okay. Now, see, it is permitting the bending in leaf stem without the breaking. Okay. And so it is present, it is giving that mechanical assistance to the plants here. Okay. Then comes the skeletonchyma. On one hand, we have just seen the collenchyma which is there. It is providing that bending ability. This skeletonchyma, it is providing that stiffness and hardness of the plants. Okay. This is the one, like we can see the coconut husk which is there. Okay. So that also consists of the skeletonchyma. Okay. At the same time, they are very much long and narrow, but they consist of lignin. Okay. And this lignin is also used for like acting as it is, this lignin is acting as a cement and it hardens the wall. Okay. This lignin is used for hardening the walls or thickening the walls. So that is present in skeletonchyma. Okay. And see, in stems, in the vascular bundles, in leaf veins, and even the tough shells of seeds and nuts, this tissue can be found. Okay. So that hardness or stiffness which is present in the plant's body, or even the shells of it, even the like the seeds or nuts which are there, it is basically coming from the skeletonchyma. Okay. So it is coming from that skeletonchyma. Now, then we have this epidermis. Okay. This epidermis is basically the outermost layer of the cell in a plant. Okay. They are basically the outermost layer. Okay. And like this epidermis, if we talk about the desert plants, there you can find that this epidermis may be thicker than normal. Why it is thicker than normal? Basically, it is shielding the plants from that transpiration loss. You know that transpiration, it is the process of loss of water through the leaves or the body parts of the plant. Plants are absorbing the groundwater through the roots. It is coming to the leaves and stems or branches of the plant, and from there, through a stomatal opening, it can go into the atmosphere. This process is what we call as transpiration. Now, this epidermis, basically, it can be thicker in certain desert plants, which can prevent the loss of water. Okay. So this entire surface of the plant is covered by this outer layer of epidermis, and it is safeguarding all the different part of the plant. Okay. So like we have this epithelial tissue. In similar manner, we have this epidermis in the plant. Okay. Then, if we talk about the plants, the aerial part of plants, the epidermal cells which are there, they also secrete a waxy layer. Okay. The epidermal cells which are there, they also secrete a waxy layer, which is again resistant to water. Okay. And this waxy layer is again trying to shield the loss of, it is trying to disconnect, or it is trying to reduce the exchange of gases between the atmosphere and the plant. Okay. So it is again helping to safeguard, or it is also helping to protect the loss of water or prevent the loss of water. Okay. Then after, see, there is one thing, like you can see that this epidermis, it is acting or as a shield. So for that purpose, you will find that this epidermis is a continuous layer, and it has very little or no intracellular spaces among the different cells. Okay. So this is a continuous layer. There is no such intracellular spaces between the different cells of the tissue. Okay. So here the cell is quite compact. Okay. This tissue is entirely compact. Okay. But like you can see, the leaf epidermis, they are consisting of some small pores which are called as stomata. Now you know that this stomata is having two guard cells which is regulating the exchange of the different gases or water with the plant and the atmosphere. Okay. So in case of leaves of the plant, the epidermis is having certain pores which are basically called as stomata. Okay. So this is the epidermis in the plants. Okay. Stomata, as you know, they are helping in the transpiration and all. Okay. Okay. See one thing. In case of the desert plants, we have the presence of a substance called as cutin on the epidermis. And this cutin is that like this is a waterproof chemical. Okay. Waterproof chemical substance. So it is reducing that loss of water from the surface of the plants, from the leaves of the plant in the desert region. Okay. So that is its role. Okay. Now we have two important complex tissue. Okay. We have two important complex permanent tissue, one being the xylem, the other being the phloem. Okay. Just see are these structures. In the case of xylem, there is one-way flow of water and minerals. So there is water and minerals which is being transported by the xylem from the roots of the plants to the leaves. Okay. Now, there is no end walls between the cells. Okay. There is no such end walls between the cell. On the other hand, you can see that there is end walls with perforations. Okay. This phloem, this is the another structure, phloem. It is consisting of end walls with perforations. And these perforations are allowing the two-way flow. This phloem is responsible for transfer of water as well as food, okay, to the different part of the body. Basically, it is carrying the food manufactured in the leaves of the plants to the different part of the body. Whereas this xylem is responsible for carrying the water and minerals from the root to the leaves of the plant. So they are two complex permanent tissue. Why they have been called as complex permanent tissue? See, they are made up of different types of cells. Normally, you will find that a simple tissue is made up of one type of cell. But this is called as a complex permanent tissue because it is made up of many different type of cells. Different type of cells come together to form this complex permanent tissue. Okay. Now, see, if we talk about the xylem, here you can see we have the tracheids, vessels, xylem parenchyma, xylem fibers. They are basically coming together to form the xylem structure. Okay. And they are also having several dead cells with strong walls. They are also having several dead cells with strong walls. Okay. And what is the role of them? They are basically moving the minerals and water vertically. They are able to move the minerals and water vertically from the bottom to the top of the plants. Okay. So that is the role of xylem. Okay. Now, this parenchyma, this is serving as a food reserves and also helps in water sideways conduction. Okay. It is also helping in water sideways conduction. Then at the same time, we have the last important complex tissue found in the plants. Okay. So that is phloem, and again you can see we have companion cell, sieve tubes, phloem fibers and phloem parenchyma. Okay. So they are coming together to form this complex phloem tissue. Okay. And here you can see that materials can travel in both directions. Okay. And food is moved from leaves to other part of the plants by these phloems. Okay. See, one more thing. These phloem cells, the phloem cells which are there, they are living cells. They are living cells. Okay. So it is differing from here you can see they differ from xylem in one terms that the substances can move both ways. Okay. So that is the last part of the tissues which were there. Okay. So in this session we have discussed about the various type of tissues which are found in plants and animals. We have seen the different type of tissues in animals. We have seen their function, and similarly we have talked about the different type of tissues which are there in plants as well. Okay. So in the next session, we will be discussing further more important topics. Thank you very much. All the best.